Intuitive Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tay, also known as the Kind of Witch. And with me is my beautiful co-host, Petra Costa from When Magic Awakes. And today's episode, we are talking about intuition. Is it intuition, instinct, or maybe indigestion? Turns out they all have things in common. Sometimes it is indigestion that's telling you something might be up. And what makes me say that, Petra?
Well, because there's a huge amount of overlap between all three, and I suppose is the main reason. So, as always, I'm going to go where I always go and go into a brief definition.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got intuition, and intuition is the ability to acquire knowledge without recourse to conscious reasoning or needing an explanation. Now, it gets a bit complicated because you've got woo-woo circles and then you've got actually scientific circles. So different fields use the word intuition in very different ways.
Yes.
But it can be access to unconscious knowledge, unconscious cognition, gut feelings, inner sensings, inner insights. I had to rub my belly then, didn't I? Rub my belly. Inner sensing, inner insight to unconscious patterns and recognitions. Okay, so that's intuition. So not being able to take things, getting the knowledge without consciously thinking about it. So we've got that one. And then we've got instinct.
Yeah.
Now, instinct is the inherent inclination of a living organism. So it's not just humans. All living organisms have instinct.
Yeah.
And it's their inclination towards a particular complex behavioral pattern.
Yeah.
Including innate inborn elements. So it's not something that we have developed through, picking up the fact that if, someone is, fidgeting or whatever, that they may not be trustworthy.
Yeah.
It's more something that we instinctively are born with it, and it's been passed down basically in our genetic code from previous generations.
In our biology.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just part of every species has the survival instinct.
Yes.
To pass certain bits of information down the line.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference between instinct and intuition. But then you get gut feeling.
Yes.
Right? How does your spidey senses and your gut feeling go? Well, it's interesting because I've been looking into this, funnily enough, and there's a huge amount of neurons that function very similar to the brain that are in our enteric nervous system.
Yeah, right.
And the enteric nervous system is the nervous system of the gut, effectively. And it has more neurons flying around and firing off in its system than the spinal cord or the peripheral nervous system.
That's
so
crazy.
That gives you a bit of insight into how much information is being processed by your gut.
Because the enteric system, I think, is linked into your parasympathetic nervous system, and your parasympathetic nervous system, or your PNS, is part of the nervous system in which controls passive processes, the things we're not thinking about. Like, we don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about whether our heart's beating, and we don't have to think about whether we're digesting food or not. It just happens. So that's kind of interesting that neural network is connected to the part of you which is just doing its thing on autopilot.
Exactly. It's really interesting. And what gets a little bit more interesting for me is the fact that obviously we all know our brain is connected to everything.
Yeah.
But the brain is connected to the gut system by one of the largest nerves, the vagus nerve.
Yes.
Which is one of the largest nerves in the body.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets interesting. It's biodirectional. So it's not just that the brain is telling the gut to do X, Y, and Z. The gut is telling the brain all about A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I go, yeah, well, it should be back and forward, like, back and forward between my hand and my brain. Like, my brain tells my hand to grab something, but my hand is sending the signal back to my brain to say, I just grabbed it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I get that. But would you be surprised to know that 95%, oh no, sorry, 90% of that communication is from the gut to the brain?
Yeah, right.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
And 95% of all of the body's serotonin, which we know is a chemical reactor, it sits in there and helps with mood, helps with emotion, but also is a chemical reactor that drives a lot of things.
Yeah.
95% of that sits in the gut.
Yeah,
So
right.
scientists are saying, like, and this is not me, this is scientists,
Yeah.
that the amount of information that's traveling up through that nervous system back to the brain from the gut
Yeah.
is out of whack if it was just sending information to say, I'm full, I'm having a little bit of trouble processing the 350-gram steak you've just eaten.
That leg of antelope that you caught out on the plains.
It's not in sync with that amount of information.
Yeah.
So something more is going on with our gut communication to our brain.
Yeah.
So our gut feelings, we would suggest that they would be linked to our intuition.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that, because the vagus nerve, being that main neural pathway from the gut to the brain, is actually the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. And as well as being the one that controls all those passive functions of, digestion and things like that, it's also the one that gets most overstimulated within the nervous system, depending on the extrasensory information that is being processed within us on a neural level. And a lot of people, especially if you've got like anxiety or you're stressed or you find that you're in fight or flight mode chronically, your vagus nerve is actually the one that takes on all of that stimuli and has to try and process it. And so they've linked those things to like deteriorated gut health and stuff. And I think you did a bit more research in that, but I found that very interesting.
There's when you just look at this topic and you just say type in, intuition and gut.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised. You would think a lot of it would be new age information, but it isn't. Most of the information is coming up is from Psychology Today, science bodies, and they've basically done a lot of testing and a lot of analysis. And there is no doubt, and there is no doubt that how our gut is functioning, and if our gut is functioning well, and that's a lot of things, that it's not just having the right bacteria in your gut and the right balance. A lot of things got to be going on, but we know it's been proved that if that's running well, our moods, our ability to process information, our ability to pick up information is increased. Right? So that's been proved. It shocked me the level of interconnection. Like, I knew just from being a person who suffers from indigestion. I knew that when I'm stressed, and usually my being stressed is that I've got too many things that I'm thinking about. My brain stresses me out rather than anything else. I know that it upsets my indigestion. What I hadn't really considered, the fact that it might be the opposite's happening as well. That it actually might be my indigestion that's creating an environment in my brain that is making me more stressed out than I would be in relation to those kind of things. So I found that
working in a healthy manner.
And they've proved it, and they've run studies by modifying how people's guts working by the balance of good and bad bacteria in the stomach, and they can influence mood and cognitive behavior.
And I'm literally
it is
sitting here thinking the amount of times you've like eaten a meal or something and then you've just felt so doughy and sluggish afterwards, and people just think that's like the late arvo nap time cue, but it's possibly the fact that whatever you're consuming is having some serious conflict with those neural processes and pathways, and maybe it's inhibiting your ability to uptake that serotonin a little more than it usually is.
Yeah.
Dysbiosis is a big thing. Like IBS sufferers, I've had IBS in the past, and anxiety and IBS go hand in hand, because the IBS has a lot of triggers, mental wise and physical wise. For me, it was gut dysbiosis. I'd had stripped probiotics. The flora and that in my gut was off. So I actually, sort of repaired that over time with like mental health stuff and like changing my diet and things like that. And the link there is incredible when you really look into it. But we're not here to talk about gut health.
We're not here to talk about gut health.
Intuition and instinct, but it is incredible how your body reacts to certain stimuli and things. And I think when we're talking about intuition and instinct, it's often a stimuli that we can't touch or we can't see. Like it's beyond our physical capability of grasping. So like how do we discern that? Like what are some of the ways in which science and spirituality tell us we can?
This is really difficult, because we have to really understand, and everyone will have a different interpretation of what they think intuition is, right? Yeah. Everyone, and even for their own self, they will have a different interpretation in terms of in different situations.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ignore instinct, because I think we all pretty much agree, and I don't think anyone's going to argue it, is that we have these natural things that we know to be fearful of. Like, even to a certain degree, our fear for animals that have got really huge teeth come from the fact that we've been eaten by them in the past, so we might want to watch out for them.
Exactly.
We might have a little bit of anxiety around the dark. Well, okay, because you can't see the animal with the really big teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're in the dark, right? So I think we can all agree that instinct, I'm happy for me to put instinct aside and let's talk about intuition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind, there's two very, very different parts of intuition. I've got the intuition that I know in me works off the chart.
Yeah.
And it's the part of my brain that it's able to take in all of the information, all of those little subconscious clues, the things that are there.
Yeah.
But you're not picking up and you're not taking on board. Now, we discussed the other day when we were talking about dream analysis and all that kind of stuff, that there's a whole bunch of information that your brain can't take it all in. It just physically can't. So it takes in the limited amount that it has to create a picture so that it can make faster decisions.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's not gone into you. All the other information is there. And I remember a time when we were going off to work, Johnny and I were going off to work. We were in a rush, and we just said a quick goodbye to the dogs, give them a kiss, bye-bye, and get in the car, reversing out of the driveway to leave. And I'm just like going, something's not right.
Yeah.
Something's not right. And I'm there and we were driving and I go, nah, I'm feeling not good.
Yeah.
Can we please go back? I need something. I had no idea what it was. Can we please go back?
Yeah.
So we went back, and when we went there, one of the dogs had been hurt. She'd actually cut her chest, and her chest was open and she needed to go to the vet.
Oh.
Now, I may have seen it and not noticed it.
Yeah.
I may have picked up when I kissed the dog on the head that it was sweatier than it should have been, that its temperature was off, that it usually would jump up and it would greet me rather than me greeting it.
Yeah.
There could have been a billion different subtle clues that were telling me something's wrong.
Yeah.
My conscious mind had no idea what it was, because I didn't say to John, go back because there's something wrong with the dog.
Yeah.
I said, go back because something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think there's that intuition, which is our brain operating at a higher level that it's processing all of the subconscious information that we're taking in
That kind
and
of
making
sounds like mother's intuition, doesn't it? Because
it really does.
you know your own children, like you know the minute that like their behavior shifts, and you can't quite put your finger on what's wrong. Like for me, I know Erica's like getting sick or something when she's quieter than usual, when she's not touching her food, when she like there's certain little cues that she looks fine in herself and she might be normal, but I can tell she's off before it even before she starts to develop symptoms, you know. So same thing.
So I think there's that, which is definitely a class of intuition, because if we define intuition as being, not conscious, and it's, unconscious or subconscious clues that we're picking up, it's definitely that's it, right?
Well, someone might even say that form of intuition is aligned with claircognizance, which is like knowing something without knowing why you know it or what it is, or even clairsentience, where you're having that feeling that something is going on. And the clairs come up a fair bit when we're talking about intuition, because being humans, we need to define things. So yeah.
Well, so I think we've all got that one. So some of us process it faster. So, it's like it's Sherlock Holmes mode. So you know that when Sherlock Holmes, you go, oh, how did you know that, Sherlock? And Sherlock's gone, oh, elementary, my dear Watson. It was this. We don't realize that. And going from our previous podcasts, it's very clear that the conscious mind doesn't do much of anything. It was what, less than 5%. And so we understand this. And our mate, you pointed this out, you found this, Tay, that our mate Carl Jung, once again, is ahead of the game.
So Carl Jung, and his main squeeze, Wolfgang Pauli, who was actually an Australian theoretical physicist.
Aussie. Oi.
And one of the pioneers for quantum physics studying. They coined the term synchronicity. And this is a word that we hear in the new age sort of circles and things all the time. But synchronicity is pretty much the ability to connect to events and thus create a pattern for which you can therefore interpret in an intuitive way. It's kind of like doing a bit of a divinatory reading over time. With different symbols and omens that come up. And like we said in the dream interpretations, the symbols and omens and things that are going to come up for you are going to have complete different meanings to what the person next to you would associate it with. So for me, I always did think of that as being your own intuitive language. You might have different ways of interpreting what's being said to you, as opposed to someone else next to you who might be feeling completely different.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that we keep coming back to patterns. So there's a lot of pattern work here. Even when, Carl's talking about it, he's talking about it, synchronicity, in terms of looking for patterns and finding patterns and seeing patterns. So I think there's that. And I suppose if you really want to go kooky about it, and, obviously Carl Jung did believe in the collective consciousness. He did believe in the fact that there was that shared pool of knowledge and that is constantly getting updated. It would, if you wanted to extend it, you could say, well, okay, maybe I'm picking up patterns and changes, and my subconscious is picking up those little things going on in the collective consciousness. But then we get to intuition, where it's a little bit of ESP. It's a little bit more where it's extrasensory, it's a sixth sense, it's more than what was in front of you.
I do love me some extrasensory perception, some ESP, and I think that is where it gets a little bit woo-woo sometimes, because we can look at ESP as like the way we can tap into our senses as an extension of ourselves and our range of perception. So like I might not be able to see what's going on over there, but I can sort of hear and smell what's happening on the wind, which is telling me what's going on over there, which is, you know, a part of our mammalian biology makeup, which, you know, feeds into our instinct and stuff. We're animals after all. But it also goes into like the clairs, right? So clairvoyance is clear seeing. So that is like when you're receiving visions or you're having prophetic dreams or something like that. Clairaudience is clear hearing. So this one's kind of funny because this is one of the ones that pops up for me heaps. You hear something and it's usually disembodied. So it's not coming from a physical place, or it might be coming through as like a little sub voice in your mind. Like you hear
internal.
it in your you hear it in your head, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like tapping into your ear at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the clairsentience, so the clear feeling. So that's like sensing the subtle energies and shifts in the environment or in yourself or in your another person even. That's how we gauge other people in interactions a lot of the time too, especially if you know somebody really well. You can often tell just by how they're vibing what's going on with them. Like they feel off, you might need to investigate a little bit further, you know. And then you have really weird ones like clairsalience. So that's like supernatural sense. So you can smell something without actually having it physically there. And that might be in a residual way or in a like an etheric sort of psychic way. Personally,
I always say I can smell when my family is not well before they get sick.
Yeah.
I just go, you smell right, make sure you have some orange juice or da da da.
Yeah.
Or I can smell something about them. It's not anything to do with body odor or anything like that. I just get this little phantom whiff that said, no, they need to do this, they need to go to bed early, blah, blah, blah. And so I do get that sometimes, just how someone a smell. It's not how they smell. It sounds wrong to say it's how they smell. It's something that I pick up around them that I'll go, oh, and it could be emotionally off, it could be physically off, but I can tell when they're off.
It's interesting.
It's a weird one, but I think I've got that one going on.
Yeah. It's like an energetic bloodhound almost.
Yeah.
You smell weird.
You smell weird.
You smell weird. Something's not right.
You should try explaining that to someone.
Yeah.
Like if you just like you're there and you think, oh, you just really need to take it easy and have some orange juice.
I just think of Frances from Practical Magic, and she's just like, I can smell it. It's a distinct smell. It smells like bullshit. I fucking love that.
A little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
What are the other crazy ones? So we've got
clairgustance. So clairgustance, supernatural taste. So like for me, this is kind of like the blood in the mouth type thing. A lot of mediums and stuff get that sort of thing, especially if someone's like died violently. You know, they get that irony, metallic taste. I mean, they could have low iron or you know, hemochromatosis or other things going on. But when you've got no like clear physical, biological health thing going on, like there are phantom tastes that can sort of feed into your extrasensory perception in an intuitive way to, you know, give an insight. I mean, I kind of like it that to when snakes and lizards taste the air for vibrations to find like their prey and things like that. That's how I, you know, logically explain that one.
Explain it to you. Yeah.
We just thought,
I'm with that. What's it called? The Hodgkinson something that have got? I've read about that one.
Yeah. And then you've got claircognizance, which we mentioned before, was like clear knowing. So you just know something without knowing how you know it. Like there's no point of origin for that information. I mean, like you said before, it could have been that you picked up a dozen other tiny cues that have just accumulated into this feeling, which is therefore like blown up in your brain of red flag, something's going on here. You know, or it can be a combination of like all of the extrasensory perceptions and their senses, and that is giving you an insight, and then you work off that insight. So I found, like, in my own intuitive practice and things, I've akined it to like learning your own intuitive language. A lot of people will be more proficient in some areas than others. Like, we've done things in the past together, when you did my course Look at the Witch, and we did a bit of intuitive development in that and some exercises. And like, the difference between me and you is I can pick up on energies through psychometry. So that's holding an object, feeling into its energy, its vibration, and then getting insights that way. You weren't so strong in that, but then your insights come through in other ways that are different to me as well. So it's kind of like diversity. Humans are diverse, and we're definitely intuitively diverse in how we experience.
Absolutely. And that's where I think people try to debunk this, because they go, and if someone, has the audacity to say they think they're an intuitive being, and then, oh, well, tell me what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you're thinking, but I know what I'm thinking right now.
Thinking you're a dick. I think you're a dick.
I'm thinking you're a tool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I've got a thing here that's got some of the things to look for, and there's lots of different lists, but I'm going to go through this one.
Yeah.
You can notice a tight feeling in your chest or stomach.
Yeah.
When you're when intuitive information is coming through to you. Now, okay, that when you first listen to that, you think, oh, that sounds stupid. But we've already established that the gut has got a huge lot of stuff going on, and it's picking up a lot of information, and obviously a tight feeling around your chest. Well, yeah, of course, you could be having a heart attack right now.
You could be having a fucking hearty. You never know.
You could be. But if you're feeling some anxiety and nerves, you will feel it there, and that could be when your spidey senses go off. You usually have a fight or flight kind of reaction, because usually when it's really ringing the bells, it's saying something's wrong. Like, get yourself. So I'm with that one. I got that one. So another one is you can feel confident and happy, even when the decision that you've made seems that it's not rational.
Yes.
An example they gave in this one is, say you've quit your job, yet really it's not a great idea to do that because, money's tight and blah, 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 and you haven't got another prospect. But regardless of all of that, you feel really good about it.
And that can go the other way around as well. Like, you
absolutely
make a decision and you go, oh shit, I really wish I didn't do that. I don't feel right with that. And most of the time you can't take it back either. And if you do, it's going to be more complicated. So
exactly. And again, that could be a lot of things. That could be that your body's picked up on lots of things that you've picked up on, that you've seen in your background. Your boss is doing X, Y, and Z, and you've collated all of that, but your conscious mind is too busy about what it's going to cook for dinner tonight. It really hasn't had the ability to process it. So that you feel the way you feel, but there might be a reason, even though it doesn't seem rational. Then you might feel hyper aware. And this one makes sense, because if you've got something, whether it's just your subconscious mind sending you through, it's just trying to get through and trying to talk to you, and you're like going, yeah, no, I want sweet and sour sauce. I don't want barbecue sauce with the chicken nuggets. And it can't get through, right? Like, it literally can't get through. It will have to up the ante. It'll have to start screaming. And if it's screaming, it's going to cause this hyper awareness to go on, because you didn't listen when it spoke in a reasonable voice.
And it reminds me of hypersensitivity, especially as someone who is neurodivergent, diagnosed ADHD, autism. There's something I experience heaps when I'm like in public places and things. Liken that to, already being intuitive. Like, intuitively I'm turned off, but in a neurosensory way, I'm wide fucking open, and I'm so aware of what's happening around me, all the sights, the smells, the sounds, the people, the colors, that I'm just having such a hard time trying to process it all to even make that one decision of what the fuck do I want to eat at lunch today. while I'm in the food court. Like I'm visualizing the food court at Grand Central,
Yeah.
shopping
Yeah.
center, because that place has always set me off, like ever since I was a kid. Like I can tolerate it now, but that hyper awareness, absolutely. And sometimes when you're opening up intuitively too, it's one of the key indicators that you're actually opening your channels to
Yes.
receive insights, because there's been times where I've channeled intuitive artworks and things for people, and it's happened while I'm driving around. Like
Yeah.
I've not sort of intentionally opened up to it, but but it is in the subconscious. So then I just start receiving things, and then I have to discern, well, am I getting distracted, or is this for that person? But in that, I usually confidently know that that is for that person. And if not, then I just sit with that a bit more later, because I've already connected to that. So definitely that hyper awareness of that.
Yeah. And I'm going to go completely out on a limb here and say, if you don't have an underlying condition that causes hyper awareness, when you're feeling that, pay attention.
Yeah.
Because you've picked up something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a site, it doesn't matter if we can tangibly find a word for what you've picked up on.
Yeah.
You've picked up on something, and our survival instinct is very strong. And so when you're feeling that, it could be because your brain's already trying to work out how to get the fuck out of here.
It's kind of like when you pick up a clear signal on a broadcast radio, like you're sifting through all the static, and then all of a sudden you get a clear and you get a hit. And it's like, okay, well, I've got this information now. I can listen and I can tune in. I don't know what it's telling me, but like I have access to that now. And that can either be a good person on the end of the radio or a bad person on the end of the radio. And I suppose when you're practicing intuitive developments and things, that's the key thing to keep in mind too, is maintain your energetic protection, because
100%.
you're not the only one out there operating
doing
in
this.
the field. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, the fourth one they have on the list is the same opportunities keep knocking on your door. And I found this really interesting, because a lot of people would say that's the universe trying to get through.
Yeah.
But this is actually the one I'm looking at here with this listing, is actually not from a cuckoo website so much. It's a cuckoo/psychology one.
Yeah.
And sometimes if the same opportunity keeps coming up in front of you, it's not because they're coming up more often. It's that your brain has chosen to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we go back to the fact that our brain only takes on what it thinks is necessary, something in your brain is clicked to say, no, pay attention now if there's an opportunity. So I'm not saying the universe is going to start bombarding you with opportunities. What I'm saying is, maybe from a psychological perspective and from an intuitive perspective, it's forcing your focus on the opportunities that have been coming up, but it's now making you see them.
It's kind of like when someone points out, oh, gee, there's a lot of red cars here. And then all of a sudden, every second car.
Yeah. And the next one they have, which was, number 5, you start noticing patterns. And the logic is basically the same as what we said before. The brain is amazing at connecting dots. So if it starts putting things together, it can often get them right. Like, it's often putting the dots together correctly. This
kid loves a good pattern.
I was, one of the things when I was looking at the start, when they were analyzing the gut and instinct and intuition, that they did a lot of patterns. So they actually had people watch patterns on a screen while they were getting subliminal messages that were good messages or bad messages. And as the brain processed the pattern, it started linking the pattern to the subliminal messaging, whether it was good or bad. And it actually increased the kind of pattern. If it was the good stuff, you could unlock that pattern quicker. Your brain actually trained itself to say, okay, that kind of pattern, I'm going to be all over. But the bad pattern, I'm just not going to. So our brain and patterns is amazing.
You're registering what you want to register in that sense.
Just really...
The difference between having like a psychosomatic pattern formation happening in your brain and then having an intuitive pattern is that the pattern is not going to make sense to anyone else except for you. It's kind of like a unique plaid
Yeah.
of materials and fabrics that only you can sort of decipher.
Yeah.
Like that, and that goes with, Carl Jung's synchronicity statement, is that you are the one who connects those two events together. And yeah, in saying that, some people can weave their own story with that, but hey, that's fine. You do you. If that makes sense to you, no worries. Someone else, it might just be for you. But if you're reading for somebody else using that, they might not resonate or
Yes.
as
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah. 100%.
And they have to sort of either go away and go, okay, well, that's coming up now, that makes sense, or they go, oh, well, that's not actually, yet you really just missed the mark there.
Yeah.
So
do you want number 6?
Yeah.
You may notice your thoughts are being pulled in a certain direction. So random thoughts, or you keep focusing on the same thing. That seems kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Right. Your brain's doing something. But I do find it interesting. I always have that thing when I say to myself, and this was way back when I read that study in my 20s, where they were talking about getting your conscious and your subconscious to talk more.
Yeah.
And it said one of the key things is that if you have a random snippet of music or a song or a taste or a smell or wanting a certain food, and it pops up in your head for no reason at all, there's a very good chance that it didn't pop up into your head for no reason at all.
Yeah,
There's a very, very, very good chance that it popped into your head for a reason. So just all I say is in that circumstance, stop, make note of it.
Yeah.
Make note that, whatever, Huey Lewis and the News, Power of Love came on. Why am I thinking about that? And just stop and think about it, because I've read that in a many places that's an important one.
Yeah.
This one you can explain to me, because I'm having trouble with this one. They say the 7th one is you may notice your instinct and your intuition are not in sync. And it's saying instinct is an automatic response that has to do with survival, where intuition is more evolved and focuses on your highest good. Oh, I feel like I'm calling a little bit of bullshit. Okay. Okay, so I think the reason I didn't resonate with that one is because it's crap. So
that suggests a level of elitism when it comes to using your intuition over your instinct. I agree in that instinct has kept us alive. It is your survival mode. But honestly, for me, the two go hand in hand. I don't feel like your intuition and your instinct would combat each other, especially if you were in a dangerous situation. I think they would both hey, that's a fucking red flag. Run for your life, otherwise you're gonna get devoured.
And I find it a little bit elitist and offensive to suggest that my intuition is only focusing on my highest good, because there's a shitload of my life that's got nothing to do with my highest good. And I know everyone would like to think that every single step that we take in life is about walking our authentic journey for our highest good. But sometimes you just need to get to the toilet on time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about the highest good.
Yeah.
So I am calling bullshit on that one.
I think we're rehashing our toxic positivity episode a little bit there. Because there is a lot of focus in these circles around operating from the intuitive mind, because that's the higher mind, and following that almost blindly sometimes. And that's why I sort of have this like feeling of, well, is that your intuition?
Is it your intuition?
Your imagination influencing your decision making?
There is a fair bit of brainwashing going on around in and around this. So we'll go past it. There's a heap more, and I'm going to go really quickly on these so we don't have to discuss them in full, because they're just, you feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's gut feel.
Yeah.
You may feel sick, so you have anxiety around something. Yeah. Gut feel. We're talking about gut feel some more.
Yeah.
You may have a sense and a feeling that just won't go away. Okay, persistent gut feel.
Yeah.
You may feel inspired.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be your intuition talking to you, which
Yeah.
is what you suggested with the intuitive artwork. So,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
you may experience more vivid dreams.
Mm,
Now, I found that one's interesting because you know me, you were talking before how you pick up on objects and energies from lots of different sources.
yes.
I'm a dreamer.
Yes.
My stuff comes to me through dreaming.
Yeah.
So it's not as if I experience more vivid dreams, but it's more people specific.
Yeah.
And they're often, in this instance, my subconscious actually is helpful to me, and it actually does a little bit of the interpreting along the way, and it doesn't give me ridiculously obscure things.
Yes. Yeah.
It gives me quite handy stuff. So
Yeah.
if you are a dreamer, and if you're a person whose dreams are not just about wish fulfillment and all of the other things that we discussed in our
Yeah.
previous podcast,
Yeah.
pay attention to your dreams.
Yeah.
I'm 100% behind that.
Especially the ones you remember, because
Yeah.
they're always gonna be the most important. Because you obviously made a note to friggin' remember it, like bookmark that shit and come back to it later.
Now, the last two of these is saying you may find clarity when you're not busy.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's just my puzzled look.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're more likely to find clarity when you're not busy, because when you're busy, you're busy.
Yeah.
And
Whereas
but
when
okay,
you're stopped, you
yeah,
actually have a minute
yeah.
to
So they're
concentrate.
basically saying if you have a bit of a meditation and you allow your body to rest, that's when you might. Okay, all right.
I
Again,
would
that's
say that's a little bit more of a practice as opposed
yes,
to just
I
being
agree. I agree.
intuitive. Yeah.
And they're just also saying in terms of intuition here is you might find yourself pausing mentally. Okay, so I think they
Yeah.
lost it. I reckon they had about 5 or 6 good ones in there
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
But I think we both agree patterns, seeing patterns, synchronicities,
Yeah.
um, repeating numbers, repeating words. There's all lots of different things that could be the universe talking to you, and
Mm.
it could be. I'm not against the universe having a chat every now and again. Um, I also think people talk to you even if they're not in the room with you. So
Yeah.
I think people you are close to, I think it's silly to assume that you're not energetically linked.
Yeah.
Like if we look at all of the other stuff we've spoken about previously, I think it's ridiculous to assume that my only interaction is the 5 senses when I'm in a room with someone,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I don't have that. I know when my daughter was overseas, I knew she was coming down with a cold before I spoke to her.
Yeah.
Like I just knew. I go, oh, she's getting a cold. Goodness, and I knew that, and she was across outside of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of intuition can also be trusting those feelings.
Yes.
So when you get the feeling to say, "Oh, can you just give such and such a call?"
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna be a slight inconvenience to them for 2 minutes, and they're
Yep.
everything's fine. Um, that I'm sitting here thinking, because the question of how to discern what is intuition and what is just monkey mind is probably one of the most common ones that come up, like within, spiritual circles, witchcraft, things like that, people who are learning that type of stuff. And I feel like a lot of time there is a difference, but there's a contrast between solely relying on all of the crap that's coming through and labeling it as intuition, and then on the other spectrum of judging it all and not
Mm.
just trusting it.
Yeah.
You have to find like the medium balance between the two, and it takes a lot of time to decipher your own intuitive language and how the universe or the animate everything is speaking to you, and that is through studying the signs and the symbols that come up for you often. When are they coming up? What feelings are surrounding those? What energies or vibrations or whatever are you sensing when you're in a room with a particular person or you're in a certain environment? Like it's a study over time to not necessarily develop, because I feel like we're all born with intuitive capabilities, and some of us just have an easier knack to learning and understanding those earlier on as
Yep.
compared to others. And I think it all stems from that primordial intuition, which is our instinct, right? Our very first evolutionary beta of intuition, which we have developed over, the time we've been on Earth.
Yep.
And so it's getting to know your own processes and not so much developing it, but just learning the language. Like, it's already there. You just have to translate it from, the intuitive version of Arabic to your English or your native tongue, pretty much.
Yep. And I'd go to say too, I know from my perspective, I have a little rule that I do in my head. If it comes to me 3 times, it's most likely going to be intuition.
Yeah.
If it's just a thought that flashes and I never hear its resonance again, then it could just be a random thought. Because the amount of random thoughts, if I went on my intuition as to how many times I'm going to fall downstairs, literally, I would be in a full body plaster cast at all times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So there's certain things that you just got to know that that's just your thing, that you just have, and that might be rubbish. There'll be a time that I do fall down the stairs, and I would have thought about it beforehand, but I can assure you that's just going to be the natural pattern of how my brain works. That's just statistics.
Yeah.
It's just going to be maths. It's not going to be anything. But if something comes to me out of the blue and it hits me 3 times, that's my way of knowing, yep, there's something more to it than and when it's really random ass, like my brain misfires all the time. I suffer from migraines, phantom smells, like catching things out of the corner of their eyes, all that kind of stuff happens all the time just when I have a normal migraine related misfire.
Yeah.
But when it's a specific thing that's like, like I said, for instance, it was Huey Lewis in the news. I'd be like, why does that song, what does that trigger in me? Because there's something there.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting. And even if you cannot work what it is, this is the kind of thing that's worth putting in a journal.
Yes,
These
absolutely.
are 100% of the things that are worth putting in a journal.
Yeah.
When you have something that you think's random ass that comes up, jot it down. If you don't figure it out, you might figure it out down the track.
A lot of my insights are very left field. Like, I'll just be, I don't know, walking around my garden or something, and then I'll just get a hit of, whoa, like what was that energy? And then I'll sort of sit and, feel into it more and see what just starts coming up with that. And then over time, I might find there are things that are emotion that I couldn't actually see, hear, smell, feel, and that been physical at that moment, but I was perceiving from a distance. Yeah. Or it was coming, it was gonna.
And you may, and I like it in my brain, and this just goes to show how my brain doesn't work normally. As soon as you said that, I thought it's like swimming through a hot spot in a public swimming pool. You've just swum through a pee, but you just might never find out who was it?
Who was it? What was that?
Right? And that can be the same with emotions and things that you pick up.
Yeah.
You may pick it up, but you may never get the next bit of information because sometimes it's just a pool of warm water.
Yeah, it's just a random ass.
And you're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get the info.
It's like a little spike on the EMF that just goes off.
Absolutely.
On in an instant.
But I think we can say instinct, and what I did find really interesting about instinct is how much time science spent trying to train the human mind not to listen to the reptilian mind. Like, I don't know if you've looked at it, but if you look at the research from 1920s through to the 1970s, and they were doing a lot to try to, because we're humans and we're the thinkers of the planet, that they were actually trying to suppress all of that monkey brain, reptilian brain activity, and they were trying to find a way to actually break it so it didn't inhibit our thought processes.
I can't eye roll hard enough.
I am so glad we were born now, because that just seems.
Try to eye roll harder than I am going to. I'm going to look like something out of the fucking Exorcist. That is the biggest crock of shit.
It's just great. To be honest, I don't want to go into it, but I'm just going to go into one. I think I just lost it. God damn it, because it was a really big crock of shit. And I lost it off my computer. But there was basically, it was on a woo-woo website, and it was telling you how you could tell the difference between intuition and instinct. Like there was this thing that you could look up. And it was so condescending to instinct. I was.
Yeah.
In terms of the fact that instinct is just something that we should be just trying to get rid of.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And my response to that is look at the evolution of life on this fucking planet, right? As compared to reptilians and mammals, we have been here for a 15th of a second.
Yeah.
We are not so fucking high and mighty that we can be banishing that primordial instinct, which has come from our predecessors, our reptilian, our mammalian ancestors, and beyond that. We are not above that. We are, honestly, we are lesser than, because we are supposedly equipped with all of these higher thinking processes. Yet what have we done with that? What have we done with that apart from fuck the earth that has nurtured us and fuck each other in the process? So that type of thinking.
Yeah, good job.
That's the problem.
Yeah, good job with what we've done with it.
Yeah, exactly. So
all I'm trying to say is they all serve a place. They're there for a reason. Please don't try to put intuition on up there with the high vibration and instinct down with the low vibration and have them in competition with each other.
Yeah.
Because I would highly suggest that very rarely would they be in conflict.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah. Instinct, like you don't, instinctively we have certain drivers that we probably want to, we don't want to jump on the table of food because we want to stuff our faces because we don't know where our next meal is going to come from.
Yeah.
No, I know we want to. An instinct will tell us we should, but I get that. But I'm not agreeing with a lot of this new age interpretation of instinct versus intuition.
I think that's very prevalent in a lot of our episodes. I think that's just how we are.
I think it's just how we are. So in summation,
yes.
In summation,
indigestion.
You know what? I've got more respect. I've got more and more respect for our mate Carl. Really?
Yeah.
We need another Carl. This generation needs a Carl.
Yeah. And Wolfgang Paulie, because represents.
Absolutely.
And you know what? You'll love this. He was on board with the whole atomic entanglement theory as well. Yeah, go and look him up.
Oh, I will be. Absolutely.
Everyone see that? That was Petra's kawaii face.
Love it. Okay, so we've established that the gut is doing a fair bit of thinking, even though it's not cognitive thinking like the brain does. It's got a hell of a lot of neurons firing, and there is a huge amount of communication from your gut to your brain that is bi-directional, so it's going both ways. And there is even science and people who study neurologists, etc., neuroscientists are saying that level of information is going back and forward is not just about how to digest the food.
Yeah.
They're no 100%. There's no doubt about that. So don't ignore your gut.
Don't ignore your gut. Don't ignore your intuition.
No.
To rely too heavily on everything that is presenting as such, and be very discerning, and don't worry if you don't know what it is straight away. Like it's time to learn your own language pretty much.
Absolutely. And have you already done a course on that, Tay?
I'm making one. I'm in the process of developing that. So look at that in our academy, because that'll be coming.
Speed that up a bit, because that will be really, really interesting.
Absolutely.
That would be really, really interesting, because I think everyone's got intuition. people just might be discounting it too much. And it's like a muscle. There are ways to build it without just assuming that everything is a sign, because everything isn't a sign.
Yeah. Not everything is.
Not everything's a sign.
That's a whole other,
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So what are we discussing? I know what it is. Do you remember what
I can't remember. You're going to have to tell me. What are we talking about next week?
We're talking about mocking alternative beliefs, renewed for another season.
I sense a pattern.
Now, look, that's going to be interesting, because although I probably do mock alternative beliefs a lot, there's more to it than that, because at the same time, I actually almost do believe in virtually everything.
Same.
So that's going to be interesting how that one unfolds. But I think there's too much of it going on. I think there's too much. There's too much. It goes similar to the toxic positivity. There's too much of it going on, and we're going to discuss that.
Yeah, it's similar to the whole intuition over instinct thing. Like there is this binary, there is this imbalance, and we're going to talk about it. Shit. Oh dear. But for now, remember, curiosity may have killed a few cats, probably because they didn't listen to their gut. But there is no growth in ignorant bliss. So listen to your gut. It could be indigestion. Maybe take a quick ease, and then if it's still going on after that,
we are not medical professionals.
We're not medical professionals. Go to your doctor. Say, look, bruv, I've got this mad indigestion. Don't know where it's coming from. It's not tomatoes. I don't got gout. Like, what is it? Do I just need to like drink some milk and it'll be sweet? And they're probably all like, let's do some bloods and get a gut panel and see what's happening in there. And then when they can't find jack shit, that's probably your intuition saying,
"Oh, it really wouldn't be a podcast without you doing a funny voice, now would it?"
Oh, Johnny up the road's giving you bad vibes. Like that's it's your indigestion, because you just think he's blah. So
all right, so join us next week for that. And I think what we've also said here is go back and look at some of the old podcasts, because there's some really especially in relation to the dream analysis, toxic positivity, and even I think in terms of the pop culture witchcraft, there's a lot of little things that are just keep feeding into each other here, which is really interesting.
I think we're weaving a beautiful pattern.
A crochet pattern, apparently.
And this autistic kid loves a pattern, so get on that. All right, till next time. Bye.
Bye.